As for my followers, I've gained a lot of followers due to the whole gang stalking slash trolling situation that's came about. And I wanted to give some insight into the personality of the trolls. That should be obvious. It's been obvious to me since the beginning. These people are very weak and fragile people. And the reason you know this is they can't get enough of telling you how great their life is. And this is the classic overcompensation for the classic Adlerian inferiority complex. What you'll notice is most of these people hide their faces. Okay, they hide their faces behind the internet where nobody can see what they're like. If you do know who they are, a lot of the way they portray themselves is ridiculously unrealistic to the point where, and that's why they don't let you get to know them. Okay, with the situation I had, somebody didn't want me to get to know them very well because there's not much there. Now I knew this, I didn't know that with that person, of course, but the thing is, people are talking about, like, the one thing was funny. The one young gentleman that follows me, he was telling me that some orthodox treatments at the hospital boosted my self-esteem. None. It wasn't the unorthodox treatment. What it is I spent 16 years with someone. Now, they changed after they died of a pulmonary embolism and died 3 times of a pulmonary embolism and had to be brought back. Their outlook changed quite a bit, but it was too little, too late, particularly because I really wanted to have children, and at that point they were no longer capable of having children. But what needs to be understood is, okay, so I went 16 years in a relationship with somebody that was driven primarily by their desire for money, okay, and their desire for somebody that was subservient to them. So I would I would make sure that I didn't outshine them because they wanted all of my attention to themselves all the time. Now, that doesn't necessarily make the person a bad person, okay? It makes them a needy person. And I've been through this before in my video on psychic vampirism. Being a needy person isn't a bad person, okay? If you want to love somebody that's needy, you have to understand that some people need more love and more compassion than other people do. And if you can't give it to them, then you probably shouldn't be in a relationship with that person. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was someone else came into the picture, although that person didn't turn out the way I thought they would. Okay? And I'm not going to get into who that person was because that was a debacle and a half. Okay? But my point is what really boosted my self-esteem was the fact it was a reassurance of the things that I already knew about myself. I'm still young, very young. Even though I'm almost 40, I still look like I'm in my 20s. When you're told that you look like you're in your early 20s by someone in their early 20s, that's very, it verified for me that the anti-aging measures that I'm taking are working, like I knew they were, but it feels good to know that an objective party actually will tell you that they actually, and they told me that because they didn't know my age, so they couldn't have just made it up on the spot because they didn't know I was 20 years older than them almost. So the other thing is getting to speak to a person that not only understands certain concrete things that I did, such as my views on nutrition, micronutrient supplementation, particularly the practice of orthomolecular medicine. They knew who Dr. Abraham Hoffer was. I didn't get into the adrenochrome theory of schizophrenia or anything like that, but this person actually knew things that I knew. And it's kind of like, why do people join Mensa? My father was in Mensa. I don't like nerds, okay? But my father was in Mensa. Why do people join Mensa? Well, because people that join Mensa because they want to associate with people in the other percentile, the higher percentile, or the well, actually it would be the lower percent, but you know, I mean, they want to associate with other people that are highly intelligent because they can't strike up good conversation with average people because they're boring and they don't grasp things at the same level as other high IQ'd people do. Okay? So when somebody understands certain concrete truths that you understand, such as nutrition, micronutrient supplementation, they know things that you know, things like that, it really does show you that, oh my God, there's somebody else that I can talk to on the same level that I talk to myself because there's nobody to talk to. And then on top of that, when they agree with your politics, but not so much that it's phony. That's the important thing. When somebody agrees with your politics, but doesn't agree with you so much that it seems false, like a fake agreement, such as some people in the past. So when somebody agrees with you and is interested in your opinion, like they want to know, like there's a sharing of opinion. Why am I wrong? Why might I be wrong? Why does this person feel this way? Why can I find out why? So that's another thing that boosted my self-esteem. There's also somebody smart enough to understand the social and political climate that we live in now and how destructive it is. Um, Now, with these stalkers, these online stalkers, and sometimes in-person stalkers, as we know, what drives them? The fact that they're fake people. So when you meet, like for example, I met a genuine person. The truth of the matter is that genuine person probably saw this channel and probably saw my online presence and probably said, this guy is nuts. Okay, this is not the guy I met. And while she would be wrong for assuming that, it's nothing to fault somebody for. And it's nothing to hold to. It's something to let go. The reason I directed the person to my online presence is, of course, uh, can they recognize that this is not who I am and that this is the result of uh, 7 years of online harassment, or are they going to assume that this is the real me? And if they do, that's fine, and they don't need, they can do what they want with their life, but there's no reason to lie to somebody or hide things from somebody. When you lie and hide things from somebody, that's when you step off on the wrong foot, and you don't want dishonesty in see, for example, if I want to seek honest, genuine communication with another honest, genuine person, I don't want to immediately go out there lying and saying, "Oh no, this horrible nonsense that you're going to find online about me, this doesn't exist," and then make excuses for it afterward. No, they need to see it for themselves, judge for themselves, make decisions for themselves, and come to conclusions on their own. Now, I can help, I can explain things, but it would be wrong of me to try to alter their opinion or, just be like, oh, I just blah, blah, just brush it off or something. No, this is unfortunately, a real problem. The online stalking and online harassment and in-person harassment and in-person stalking, it has been a real problem in my life. It has caused real problems in my life. It has caused this false persona that I didn't create, that other people created for me to be online, and has caused my online reputation to be destroyed. It's completely destroyed my ability to get a job. It's completely destroyed my ability to live a normal life at this point. Now, why doesn't that get me down? Because I don't really care. You can't let these things get to you. That's why they would get me to lash out. The more you lash out, the more they can create this false picture of you to mislead the public and mislead people that you might want to communicate with. if you notice, their false personas that they very carefully manufacture are very hidden, as I said, and if they aren't hidden, it's very controlled what they let people know about them. And the reason they do this is because if people did know what they were about, they wouldn't like them very much because they're not very nice people. They're not very good people. They're not very they don't have a lot of depth or substance or anything of that nature. They're not very talented people. They're not very creative people. They're not, as I said in the video on psychic vampires, they are psychic vampires. And I'll leave a link to the video on psychic vampires. My point is that these people, the reason they do what they do, like, why do they have to tell you, for example, like Chief Handler, the one persona, well, I should say the moniker. I believe it's actually somebody we know. But why do they go the whole time telling you how great their life is? They own this, they own that, they own a house, they own a car. And clearly that is who I think it is at this point, because nobody else would do that. Look, I'm a genuine person. I'm not gonna bullshit people about what I own or don't own or don't do. I'm who I am. I've done what I've done. I do what I do. I own what I own. I don't own what I don't own. My priorities are different than other people's. My priorities aren't to have a whole bunch of stuff. Okay? My priority is to build my knowledge base. My priority is to keep myself as healthy and youthful as possible. And there's reasons behind that. People might want to say, it's disgusting. This is the thing. Why do they say it's disgusting for me to like women in their 20s, being that I'm 40? Well, I don't want a woman in her 40s because she's going to look like my mother. In fact, my ex-girlfriend, unfortunately, and it's sad to say this, and she points it out to me when I see her, she's actually ashamed to be seen in public with me sometimes because she believes that we don't look right being together. But that's another thing, is it's I don't spend the time I spend taking care of myself. Okay? And that was one of the problems with my ex, is she only decided to start taking care of her health when her health started failing. And that was a shame, and she would never listen to me on diet, and it was very stressful, and a lot of that stress really did wreck my life and wreck my health. And when I had to take care of her after the embolisms and all that, that really did wrecked my health. It made me a basket case. It really did destroy my ability to I stopped functioning normally. And it was because, I don't regret it. I don't regret helping her and taking care of her because it's the right thing to do. I do still do the right thing to do. And I very much am appreciative that she's alive and not gone, okay? It's very good for me to, it makes me happy to know that she's still here because of the things that I've done to help her, okay? That makes me feel happy. Doesn't make me necessarily feel good about myself or good about her or anything like that, but I'm happy that she didn't pass away, okay? That's where, where I'm coming from there. But it's very stressful to deal with somebody whose values are so different than your own. When somebody's geared towards money and success and all these things, success is not different people's measures of success are different for other people. My measure of success is not to be a multi-billionaire and own a yacht and all that. That's not, I don't care about material things. What I worry about is my health, which I suppose is a material thing. My health and somebody to share myself with. And that's what makes me happy. If you notice, these people, they don't care about sharing who they are with someone else. all they care about is, they're very narcissistic. As I said, they're very narcissistic people, very surface-driven people. They don't see below the surface. And what's funny is they like to make fun of how I point out so many things about narcissistic personality disorder. The thing that's, see, I did go to school for criminal justice, and in criminology, the sociopath and the psychopath are very common themes in criminal justice and in criminology. Narcissism is not, although I do think it drives a lot of criminality, it's not very much covered in criminology, so I've had to learn about it in the secondary manner. Although I would say that a lot of psychopaths and sociopaths are narcissistic, narcissists don't tend to be as overtly violent as psychopaths or sociopaths. So I've had to learn a little bit about it, but it doesn't mean that what I'm learning isn't accurate, because that's the truth. You can look, and as I've shown, and I'm gonna leave links to videos. There's plenty of studies into this online trolling and the kinds of people that do it. Now, what should be important to people to understand is these people are less than you. The reason they lash out at you is because they know that you are objectively more than them. They are envious of you, okay? They're envious of you because they see certain things. They don't understand, for example, they attack me for my weaknesses, okay? What they don't grasp, what's funny is they'll attack me for the fact, and I've already gone over this, and I'll leave a link to my Rumble, okay, so that people can understand. I'm not secretive about my employment history. I made a video about my employment history on Rumble because I couldn't make it here because I had been banned because they reported my videos and whatnot. I'm not secretive about my employment history. I don't care that I was a janitor. I don't care that I was a construction worker. I don't care that I, I'm trying to think, what's the most embarrassing job I've ever had? I'm trying to think. I guess working at a grocery store would be the worst possible, most embarrassing job to have. I don't care that I worked at a deli. I don't care. These things don't embarrass me. But to these people, I should be embarrassed that I was a janitor. I should be embarrassed that I drove a bus for a mental health clinic. They downplay the fact that I was a legitimate mental health professional for 2 years. And they downplay the fact that I needed many continuing education credits. In particular, I had to learn about hoarding and the biological component of hoarding, how it's more nature than nurture, which I thought was interesting. I've learned a lot of things due to the continuing education credits I was required to take to keep my position as a mental health professional. That's just the truth. But they'll downplay that and go, oh, you were a bus driver. No, I wasn't a bus driver. I'm sorry to say, but I wasn't. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was a bus driver for about 3 weeks until I quit and found a job doing rigging. Okay, I left a job being a bus driver for a job that paid me. So my job as a bus driver there paid like $8 an hour. Okay, I kept that job for 2-3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks at the most. Then a friend of mine, and this was actually while I was actively homeless, I was a bus driver. Okay, what it was is I had a friend that worked at that clinic. Because they need a bus driver, you got a license, you're not doing well, you want to get a job. Okay, I did that. I was going to gyms, getting showers and whatnot. See, the thing is, I do what I need to do to survive. A lot of these people, I don't think they could. So I did that job for 2 or 3 weeks until a buddy of mine told me about another job that unfortunately was temporary, that was rigging. And I did that, and I was making like $20 an hour, which actually let me get a goddamn room, someplace to live. So I wasn't homeless for about a month, because I could afford to get a motel room because I was making so much money doing the rigging and demolition. So I've had varied jobs because I do what I need to do to survive. So my position as a bus driver at that mental health clinic was not as long or drawn out as my position as a quote certified peer specialist. And like I said in my video on my employment, that means a lot of things in a lot of different places based on where you're working. My job as a peer specialist there, I was a case manager. I was a low paid case manager, is what it was. I help people get welfare. I help people get Social Security. I was required by the county to advocate, so I had to go to all these county meetings on mental health awareness and all this stuff. I still consider myself a mental health advocate, and I still advocate for mental health reformation. So what I did is I did a lot of varied jobs. I basically was a mental health case manager without the higher pay. The other thing is, I also had to encourage continuity of services. I had to make sure that every provider, the therapist, the case manager, the social worker, the hospitals, if somebody was in the hospital, the prison system, if I had somebody on parole, I had to make sure that all of these people were talking to each other. And on top of providing intensive support to the person, going over the person's home, taking the person into the community. And a lot of the people I dealt with were mentally challenged. Actually, the mentally challenged people were the easiest to deal with. But my point is the job was not exactly what people make it out to be. They don't understand what the job was. Okay? One of the guys that I helped get Social Security is very grateful to me. And the reason I could help him so well is because I knew what it was like to be homeless. I had a mentally challenged gentleman on my caseload. You want to talk about successes, people can call success. Success is different for different people. The gentleman had an IQ of 55, and he attempted to murder his family when he was a child, and everybody was afraid to work with him. And he's one of my favorite successes. And why was he a success? Because I got him back with his dad, who he was estranged from. But more importantly, what it was nobody ever asked this poor guy, why did you try and kill your family and set the house on fire? Let me remind you, he had an IQ of 55. Well, the reason he did it was because his family were horribly abusive to him, would put cigarettes out on him and cigars out on him, and were very nasty to him, and the justice system just didn't care. They just didn't care about this gentleman and person in a lot of ways. He was a caring person. He was just very, very slow. But nobody ever verbalized to this guy, why did you do it? You might think that that might be a question that people might want to ask somebody. And on top of that, the one therapist there, and I can say his name because he's deceased now, Dr. McGeorge. He was a good guy like me. He worked his job for most of his life was in the prison system, so he was used to working with slower individuals that weren't too bright. And he was doing cognitive behavioral therapy with him, and because he was so used to working with the just stupider people, he was able to get through to this gentleman in a way where he could start implementing these things and not lashing out and not behaving like a raving lunatic. And it got to the point where his dad was willing to take him back and work with him and things. So that's a success. That's a success. Success looks different to different people. Okay? And my success is not owning fancy cars or fancy house or anything like that. I don't mind owning a fancy car or a fancy house, but that's not at the top of my priorities. The top of my priorities is having someone to share myself with and to procreate with. But the point is, that's the success looks different to different people. And if you notice with these people, a lot of their success is very superficial. That's why they talk about how they have cars and they have houses and they have this, and they have none of it most of the time, I guarantee you. A lot of these people are computer nerds that do not have the ability to delay gratification long enough to achieve much of anything. I'd almost guarantee that. And that's all for this video.